Welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We're here with Paul Epstein, who has spent nearly 15 years as a professional sports executive for multiple NFL teams. He is the why coach. He is here to talk about confident decision-making, mastering things in life, overcoming that self-doubt, stress, and anxiety, making big decisions. So, Paul, glad to be speaking with you.
Yeah, Robert, fired up.
Yeah, I'm fired up just talking to you. And we saw when we first fired up Zoom a few seconds ago, you have this Win Monday concept. And what comes to mind there is that, there's the mental space you don't want to be in, right? The
Sure.
9-to-5 employee hating life, just over broke kind of mentality where people dread Mondays. It's like, what is that? Garfield, right? He hates Mondays. And so when I see your shirt, I think, well, we should be excited about Mondays and get ready to crush the week. And so am I on the right track there? What is Winning Monday all about?
100%. Well, it's not only my community and podcast. Bigger than that, it's a mission. Like I'm on a mission to create this movement around Winning Monday, because for me, it's the momentum builder. It's where every journey starts. And it also is what typically is the worst day of the week for the majority of people in the world. Like mentally, half of the world, I would say, the second part of their Sunday, that's why they call it what? The Sunday scaries, right? People start dreading Monday and it's not even Monday yet. So everyone's on this TGIF, fantasize about Friday, but the community that I'm building more around personal growth and development, it's all about attacking the week with intention, with purpose. And so here's where the origin of it came from. And it's actually decades in the making. I was a young buck sales guy a couple decades ago, selling sports hospitality before I embarked on this whole 15-year NFL and NBA journey. And the parent company was from the UK. So the CEO flies in from Britain and he just ripped us. And what he ripped us about was, you guys are wasting Mondays. I look at the call reports and the revenue dashboard and the analytics, and Mondays are absolutely brutal, like 40% output versus other days. And here's something that always stuck with me. He said, if you waste one day a week and you're going to work about 50 weeks in a year, and so let's say you work 20 days in a month. So basically, he's just like, you are wasting 2.5 months out of the year by wasting your Mondays. And that hit me as not just because I had to produce revenue. So it wasn't just performance and production. I just felt like my self-worth took a hit there. And I'm like, what if I could flip that on its head? What if I could create all of the wins to follow later in the week because of the work that I put in? And that's where this phrase, Robert, of separation season came from. So for everyone listening in, I believe that when we win Mondays, and most people won't, that's how we separate. If you do the same as everybody else, there's no separation. And the same thing happens in the holidays. I don't work harder from mid-November to early January than I did the rest of the year, but I keep working. And most folks take their foot off the gas. So I call holiday season separation season. And for me, we get a swing of the separation season bat every single Monday.
I love that concept in the Monday part and the holiday part, that you are not losing that momentum and you're not letting the excuses win, because it's so easy for like the flimsiest excuse of saying, well, this Monday, this human construct, right? Days of the week. I mean,
yeah,
sure, like the sun rising and setting is like a nature thing, but as far as like separating out these 7 days of the week, it's a fake invention. So why let this Monday thing hold you back? Why not instead use it as this tool to propel you forward and plan the week and to make it the best day of your week, in fact. And so having kind of given us that hook, that teaser, like, what are you all about? If we gave you a little bit of an intro, but if there was the elevator pitch, if someone said, what is Mr. Epstein all about? What kind of solutions do you provide? What's the answer?
I'm here to help people make better decisions faster, period, point blank. Like, I believe that decisions are the key to a higher quality of life, higher quality business, higher quality career, relationships, health, every single thing that we do, every single day, every single moment. It's about the decisions we make and the actions we take. So show me the quality of your decisions and I'll show you the quality of your life. And so when I'm brought in by a business, it's to help them make better decisions faster. When I'm writing books, when I'm delivering speeches, when I'm doing consulting, when I'm doing coaching, it's to elevate the quality of our decisions. Because here's what I've noticed, Robert. Every single person in the world, myself included, we've all suffered from paralysis. In a leadership role, we suffer from decision fatigue, decision overwhelm. And the reason is the average adult makes 35,000 decisions in a day. That is research backed. So imagine, well, even if the majority are on autopilot, for those, I call them our MVDs, our most valuable decisions. Like sports has MVPs, most valuable players. I wrote the book and I speak for our MVDs, our most valuable decisions, the ones of higher stakes, the ones of higher consequence, the ones of higher value. And those are the ones where we get stuck. Those are the ones where we freeze and we get paralyzed. And then we make the worst decision of them all, which is indecision. It's indecision. Indecision is the silent killer that has killed us all at one point in our lives. But what if it didn't have to? And here's the gap that I solve for. Nobody pushes back on this truth that show me the quality of your decisions, and I'll show you the quality of your life. I have yet to find one human being that said, Paul, I'm going to push back. I'm going to challenge. Everyone says, yeah, I think you're right. And so then my follow-up is, cool. So how do you make your decisions? How do you make your important decisions? What is your process? What is your system? And nobody has an answer. Oh, my gut. Oh, little logic, little emotion, but it's so scattered. It's so random. And I'm like, dude, if we're saying that the quality of our life is driven by the quality of our decisions and we don't have a go-to system, that's a gap. And so that's why I not only wrote the book about better decisions faster, it's not just about inspiring this thought to make better decisions faster. It's the how-to. It's the application. I call it the head plus heart equals hands equation. So head, heart, hands. Here's a 30 to 60 second masterclass. Head is your mindset. Heart is your authenticity. Hands are your action. Head plus heart equals hands. In other words, when deciding whether to use your hands, whether to take action, there's two checkpoints, head and heart. Head, do I think it's a good idea? Heart, do I feel it's a good idea? And just like a traffic signal when you're driving, you know exactly what to do. Green is go, red is stop, yellow is assess. That's how the head, heart, hands equation works. When your head and your heart are on board, green, freaking light, go, 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 10 out of 10 times, take action. No head, no heart, red light. Don't do it or stop doing it. And then the trickier calls. The majority of our decisions land us in the yellow when only our head or our heart is on board. And so I wrote the book to attract and build our life with more green lights. I wrote the book so now that we're aware, we stop running reds. And I wrote the book so that we have a playbook for how to navigate and conquer the messy middle of yellow.
Amazing. I can tell that you thought a lot about this and you've developed this, and it seems like the average person, or the person that is not aware or tuned into this, is really rolling the dice, right? Like
Totally.
maybe sometimes it's just logic, sometimes it's just the emotion, and just it's led to just zigzag, right? Just this randomness of life, and ending up in running all these red lights and getting into all these bad neighborhoods and ending up in a place where you don't want to be. And so I mean, help us out, help us like make the better judgment and help us make the better decision. Like, how do we, it's easy enough to say, okay, the head, heart, and hands, but then it's like such a mess, right? Of the thoughts and the emotions. And so how do we just kind of get to this better place? How do we get into this better mindset?
100%. So here's the beauty of it. Greens and reds are pretty simple and straightforward. It's just about being aware. Now that you have this framework of a head, heart, hands equation, when they're both on board, green light, take action, 10 out of 10 times. Simple, straightforward. No head, no heart, red light, no action. So you don't even need the book for green and red lights, because I just gave it to you. It's about awareness. One we want more of, one we need to stop doing. Okay, so let's double click on the yellow lights. This is the payoff. This is where I think we can have needle moving and game changing building and growth and momentum in our lives. So here's the scoop about yellow lights. They're not all created equal. If only your head is on board, or if only your heart is on board, I have a very different recommendation for each yellow light. And so if I'm listening to this right now, ask yourself, what's more likely to change week to week, month to month, year to year? Your head or your heart? And most people would say, well, yeah, over time I can change the way I think and my mindset, all about growth mindset, right? Like everyone's heard of that. You're not going to wake up with a new heart tomorrow. Your truth is your truth. Your authenticity is your authenticity. Whether we're showing up that way is a different conversation, but you still have this piece of authenticity in you. It's your true character. It's who you are at your core. So if your heart is not going to change, when only your head is on board and your heart's never going to join for the party, that's the bad yellow. So an example of this, you could use a relationship context. I'm going to use a work context because I used to run massive sales organizations. And so when you run a big sales organization, sometimes your top producer, the person that sells the most widgets, sometimes they are really difficult to manage. Like, dude, you're freaking impossible, but you sell so much. So your head says, keep them, but your heart knows they're not a keeper, but you keep them. Because pressure, goals, expectations, quotas, boss is all over you. So you're like, oh, I got to keep my top producer, but your heart knows they're not a keeper. And you keep them for a couple of years. And now you got culture problems. Now your locker room is toxic because you hung on to the yellow light. And a yellow light doesn't just have to be a person. It can be a thing. It can be an idea. It can be something. But at the end of the day, that's the bad yellow. And those yellows are more deadly than a red. Because at least the red, snap your fingers, it's done. This yellow, where only your head is on board and it'll never be a green light, that you're losing time, months, years, and there is collateral damage. The opposite, I'll be fast on this one, when your heart is on board. My message there is there's so few things where your heart is going to be a hell yes. So when you find those things, when you discover those things, when you feel those things, you stay in the fight. You try to work on whatever is going off from the neck up. Maybe you have a self-limiting belief. Maybe you need to talk to a coach. Maybe there's a courageous conversation with your partner. There is some way of untangling some of the cobwebs and the pollution that's in our head because our mind is a tricky beast and we know that. But that yellow that starts with your heart being on board, it can become a green. Not always, but we stay in the fight. And that is a lot of what my book unpacks. It's identifying, is it my head or is it my heart that's on board? And then we unpack dozens of activities and exercises and real world examples of these yellow lights. So that way people can navigate and conquer that messy middle.
I love it. Amazing. And so it seems like from your kind of your step-by-step process here that a lot of it comes down to just sorting, right? That we don't always react the same way. We don't always make the same decision. It's just like, what kind of a problem is this? What kind of a decision should I be making? And then that kind of lends itself to the decision tree of what you should then do.
Yeah, I think you're right. And here's the other beauty. So, Robert, if I asked you and you had to pick a side, is your natural disposition, are you more logic or emotion?
If I had to pick a side, I'd say logic.
Okay, so I would pick emotion. I definitely know I'm on that side of the fence. Here's the beauty. Head plus heart equals hands. It's not head or heart. It's not head minus heart or the opposite. It's head and heart, head plus heart. So the reason I share that is, for somebody like you, Robert, you lean logic. Cool. Well, that means a little bit more head. And so this equation is going to force the heart into your decision-making process, even if it's not how you're naturally wired. On my side, I'm probably way too much heart. And sometimes I don't look at the data. I don't look at the numbers. I don't make the logical choice. But now I am, because I'm forcing myself to do the head check. So logical people, emotion joins them for the party. Emotional people, logic joins them for the party. And that's why this is so beautiful. It essentially unexposes our blind spots.
I love it. So that way you're not just a one-note character and you're not just falling into the same traps that you have fallen to your entire life. You kind of mix it up slightly where you're not working against your own self-interest, but you're also just bringing the other ingredients into the equation. And so this is amazing. And so in all of your adventures, right, your journeys, I'm sure you have some fun stories. And this is a podcast, right? It's a fun place to talk about those stories of failures and struggles. So what kind of story comes to mind that you'd like to share with us today?
Yeah, well, there's so much. I think when you hang out in the sports industry for 15 years, we're not short on stories. So since you said fun, I'm not going to share this story, but let's just say that when I talk about the opposite side of fun, which is kind of like that, the serious storms, man, I feel like that 15 years was a lot of walking through fire. You know, I start selling the LA Clippers when Kobe and Shaq were across the hallway, and ESPN says you're the worst brand in sports. And then Sports Illustrated front cover has worst franchise in sports history and 3 fans with paper bags over their head. And one of the paper bags says, just shoot me. And you got to sell that. You know, so like that literally was my introduction to sports. And then you fast forward and Colin Kaepernick kneeling, and I'm here at the Niners and all this stuff. So I can share all about stories that are walking through fire, but I will tell you some of the funner parts of my journey in the sports industry where, I mean, for one, getting to be married on the field of Levi Stadium shortly after Super Bowl 50. And it was my wife's idea on venue, I swear. So she literally was like, hey, y'all do weddings at the stadium, and we're going to make this work. And you know the right people, and aren't you in charge of events? And so, yeah, just a magical day. And I mean, we're both of Mexican descent, even though you can't tell by the last name. So taquero, mariachi band, tequila flowing out of barrels, like just amazing. And here's another thing too, because I know we have obviously a big marketing audience and sales, and we're all kind of tied here, but here's a fun story for you. So NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, I'm working at the NFL League office, and this is prior to Super Bowl 48. I'm running a national sales campaign, and we have a kind of a poster board that shows all of the inventory. And in this poster board, you have green pins, yellow pins, and red pins. So what they mean is green is sold, yellow is in conversation with a prospect, and then red is no action. Well, this was early days of the campaign. And by the way, the end of this, the result, this is just kind of a cool backstory. We ended up breaking an all-time Super Bowl revenue record. So there is a happy ending to this story, but this was really early in the campaign. So if you looked at this poster board, you would have seen a lot of red pins because, hey, we're in month 2 of an 8-month or 9-month campaign. It's obvious. But anyways, my boss used to shield me. He was a chief revenue officer for the NFL. He used to shield me from the commissioner. And he's always like, if Roger comes around and like, I got this, like basically like pipe down, young buck. You know, that's basically what he was saying it without saying it. So one day my boss isn't around and Commissioner Goodell walks over, and it's me and the poster board and a lot of red pins. So he comes over and says, tell me about this. What am I looking at? And, you know, I'm composing myself. I'm like, well, sir, well, and again, for those, even if you're not a sports fan, this is arguably the most influential and powerful person in all of professional sports. And here I am, a sales guy. Okay. So I say, well, Mr. Commissioner, this is all Super Bowl 48, our premium hospitality. And so green is sold and yellow is we're in conversation with a prospect. So far, so true. But red, I was like, holy shit. Like, I don't want to tell him what red is. No action. So I go, red is red hot prospect. And then he looks at me and he's like, well, it looks like it's a mighty hot market. And then he just walks away. So there you go. My career was saved, my sales and all that, my brand was intact, and I survived that conversation with Commissioner Goodell. But you want to talk about pressure to think on your feet in real time. I did not have a head, heart, hands equation. I almost wish I would have, but I survived it. So there you go.
That is funny that you didn't lie, but you spun things. And
Yeah.
so whenever you think about like sports or sales or anything like high stress, you think about this idea of the delayed gratification and of putting in the work and the effort and also having fun along with it and having the reward at the end. So do you have any thoughts or uniqueness on that? Just on the kind of it's not just about goofing off versus torturing yourself, but there's something about like the enjoyment of the stress and the job well done. And like, you know, you have all these athletes, so they enjoy the struggle. So I mean, tell me about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, you talked about enjoying the struggle, and if we could brand the struggle as adversity, I think there's two groups of people, those that adversity absolutely just derails them. And then there's others that they endure the storm. They weather the storm. Like it still sucked, right? It was still hard. It was still challenging. Maybe I did take 2 steps back, but other people took 20 back. And now I know that I need to march forward. And here's the beauty, Robert. I was exposed to this all over in the professional sports world. Think about this. When you're in an NFL locker room, or you're in an NBA locker room, or any sport for that matter, this is the top 0.1% in the world at what they do. They're the most gifted and talented and skilled in the entire world at this thing called football, basketball, whatever. And so knowing that, why is it that such an elite level of performer can go from a great game to a horrible game? Nothing happened. Nothing changed. They didn't become less gifted, less talented. And so I identified this gap. And this is something, I mean, literally front smack dab, middle and center of my website, paulepsteinspeaks.com. You will see the lead headline, Closing Our Confidence Gaps. And that was the gap that I saw that separated those that could sustain excellent performance, sustain performance in adversity, in the stress like you described, versus those that couldn't. It wasn't a gift problem, a talent problem, or a skill problem. It was a confidence problem. And so what I've done now is I have built and coached this formula that for me gave me the gift of unshakable confidence. I have many people outside of myself to thank for inspiring a lot of this process. And then I just curated it. I implemented it myself back in 2016. So it's been some years, and I started to coach it 2017, 18. And now it's just become tried and true, whether I'm working with professional athletes, whether I'm working with Olympians, whether I'm working with Fortune 100 CEOs, some of the higher growth founders that are in the world. Like I work with all the Navy SEALs. Here's the formula. And I want to share not only the formula, I want to share a process with our audience right now. The formula is confidence equals values times action. Confidence equals values times action. The multiplication is how consistently you do it. In other words, show me a person that takes consistent action on their values. I will show you a confident person, period, point blank. So people say, awesome. Okay, Paul, like no pushback, got it. So values, oh, shoot, I'm not quite clear on what my values are. Or, oh, shoot, I've never had a process like this. How do I put it in play? Cool. So I'll share a resource in a second. Literally, it's a confidence quiz that's on my website, and a list of values is baked into that. So it's all there for everybody listening in. But if you were to go to that quiz, you'll see a list of 50 values. You could pick one from there. And I'll give you 2 examples, because here's going to be something. I'm going to give you a journaling exercise. And I know people roll their eyes when they hear journal. Trust me, I had to be told by over 100 people to journal, and I didn't listen. And then finally I started to, and that's when a lot of transformation happened. Here's the good news about this journal. I'm not going to tell you to do it on gratitude like the rest of the world does. Well, I think that's great. I'm going to tell you to do it on putting a value in action. And it takes 2 minutes, and you're going to do it once a week. So if I tell you to do something 4 times, 2 minutes a week, I'm asking for a commitment of less than 10 minutes in a month. So everybody has the bandwidth to do that. Okay, here's the journal. For the week ahead, I will live my value of blank by blank. The first blank is the value you choose. The second is an action that you connect to the value. So I'll give you 2 examples. Let's say you choose the value of joy. Awesome. Okay, journal. For the week ahead, I will live my value of joy by cooking my favorite meal. Cool. Like, sweet. For me, anytime I'm making bacon, I am a happy, joyful camper. Whatever that is for you, that's a small example. Anybody could do it. All right, let's detach from joy. Let's raise the stakes a little bit. Let's go courage. Let's say your core value is courage. Journal. For the week ahead, I will live my value of courage by having that challenging conversation that I've been putting off. So you're not having that challenging conversation because Paul said, you're having the challenging conversation because courage is a core value. So those are 2 examples, joy and courage. And when I coach it, here's the last piece of advice. It's also why New Year's resolutions don't work. One is we don't have a process or system like a journaling exercise. The other is we don't do it for long enough. And so it disappears. By January 10, Feb 1, it's gone. So what the science tells us is habit formation, which if we're not going to develop a habit, don't waste your time journaling. Like if you're going to do this once or twice, I promise you no change. I promise you no improvement. This is not an overnight thing. But here's habit formation to be internalized and muscle memory. Habits happen in a 3 to 4 week time period. So consistent repetition, consistent process, 3 to 4 times, you got it. So the obvious recommendation here is do this journaling exercise for 4 times, because now you pass the threshold of it becoming a habit. And now what you'll see is all my clients, this is what happens. The first week we force it, they'll do only 1 action on that value. The next week you stick with the same value. Maybe they do 2 things, maybe 1. Still hasn't really taken off. But then week 3, we see an uptick. 3, 4, 5 actions connected to that value. And then by week 4, watch out, 7, 8, 9, 10. So imagine if you chose joy. Now by week 4, you're doing 8 things that brought you joy in a week versus you were doing 1 thing that brought you joy a month before. Same thing with courage, same thing with any value. You stick with 1 value for an entire month, 4 journaling sit downs, 1 value. And that to me is the key to how you build confidence, because now you're locked in on who you are. You take consistent action connected to your core. And now when hurdles, obstacles, stress, anxiety, challenges, bad market conditions, all negativity, all the stress, the news is telling you the world's falling apart. You're like, dude, I'm locked in. I'm locked in because I know who I am. I'm going to swing this bat connected to my values. And all of a sudden adversity doesn't feel so big.
I find that to be very powerful. Just your values and your actions, and how many times it's tough to start. And with what you have here, it just takes this tiny bit of structure, and you just go through those first few days of awkwardness just to get it locked in, just for it to be a habit. And the next thing you know, it builds on itself. And this is really amazing. And I enjoy kind of just experiencing your thought process in the both sides of the coin kind of aspect, and also kind of the visual way that you think with like the red, green, and blue in different kind of contexts. And I find you to be an amazing person, Paul. And I've really your advice is sunken in. I feel like I'm going to have to go and watch this interview with us like 3 or 4 times just to get all of it to sink in. And so if someone was amazed and wowed by the little taste, the tease that you gave so far, what's the next logical step here? Should someone go to your website, check out your book, all the above? What is the call to action?
Call to action is paulepsteinspeaks.com. Has everything you need, from speaking to coaching, the confidence quiz that I mentioned. There is a free confidence quiz that in less than 5 minutes, it'll get you to a confidence score of 1 to 100. And then they're going to hook you up with some resources on the back end on how to build and sustain confidence. My parting words are on that topic of confidence too. Always remember, because we all need more confidence. We're all human, right? Like life is hard. It's challenging. So we need more confidence, and we need to be confident more consistently. Don't think of confidence as a light switch. It's on or off. I'm either confident or I'm not. That's the wrong mindset. The right mindset is confidence is a dimmer switch. +1, +2, -1, +3. Like dimmer switches are not on off, and your confidence is the same way. So my quiz gives you a data point on where you are today, and then the resources after give you an action plan on how you can raise it +1, +2, +4, +8, and off you go. And now your default setting of confidence is going to be much higher because of all the things that we hook you up with. So all that's at paulepsteinspeaks.com. And yeah, Robert, it's just been a really, really fun time, man.
And it's been a fun time having you here. So paulepsteinspeaks.com. That's paulepsteinspeaks.com. Just had to get it rattled out.
Got it, baby.
Mess it up. That means we're both true professionals. And as we wrap up and wind down our conversation, do you have a favorite quote, moral, or lesson? I'm sure you have a ton, and it's hard to narrow down to just one, but what's your, maybe not number one all-time favorite, but just what pops out in this very moment? Quote, moral, or lesson?
Yeah. Well, finding my why changed my life. So that's where I'm going to go with this one, by Mark Twain. The 2 most important days of your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why.
Fantastic. And we'll see you over there at paulepsteinspeaks.com.